What if there was a way to heal someone? To have the power to stop someone from dying? There is a way. And it's you. Thousands of patients are searching for a marrow donor. Join the Be the Match Marrow Registry and be the one to save a life.
Hi, my name's Dunleavey, and in 2011, our lives were forever changed. I was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of blood cancer called leukemia. It nearly killed me. I went through several rounds of very aggressive chemotherapy just to keep me alive. After 3 rounds, I was told that I had a 10% chance of living without having a stem cell transplant done. I was told that I needed to go into the International Bone Marrow Registry to find a donor. In Canada, it's called onematch.ca, because my family were not potential donors. After several months, we got the phone call that they had found me a match. Unfortunately, the cancer relapsed before we were able to do the transplant. So after more chemotherapy, we finally got the cancer into remission. In May of 2012, I had a life-saving stem cell transplant. What took place was they gave me the chemotherapy and also 6 rounds of full body radiation to make sure that they knocked out all the bad cancer. The process of the stem cell transplant for me as the recipient was basically a blood transfusion. I had a line in my chest. I ran a half marathon in June this year in Chicago as a way of giving back. It's a way I wanted to thank the city of Chicago for inadvertently saving my life. I ran this half marathon for a friend who had leukemia also. Her name was Mago. She went through a stem cell transplant and she's doing much better. Ironically, she was diagnosed last year on my birthday, October 7th. We met through different friends over the internet, and our stories are very similar. After waiting a year to find out who my stem cell donor was, it turns out that my donor was an American serviceman named Nathan. Nathan was stationed in Japan at the time, serving the military. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. My family thanks you. We thank you. If it wasn't for your generosity and your willingness to help a complete stranger, a Canadian, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you, Nathan, being willing to help me, being willing to help a complete stranger. After coming home from having my stem cell transplant, my body's immune system was suppressed because I had someone else's immune system trying to blend its way into my body. I developed 3 viruses in a 6-week window. The third one was the worst. It was called transverse myelitis. It's a spinal cord injury, similar to MS, but not MS. The myelonin sheath, which encompasses your spinal cord, had damage done to it. They weren't sure. They thought I could possibly end up in a wheelchair. It was months and months of tests to confirm that the cancer was not in my spinal cord. That would have been a death sentence for me. While I was ill, different people ran marathons for me through the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, through different blood cancer organizations. It was humbling and thrilling at the same time. I wanted to run. In June of 2013, my son, myself, a fellow named Gil, who's a pastor of an inner city church here in London, and his oldest son, we got to go to Anchorage, Alaska, where he ran a marathon for me on my behalf in Alaska. So I started running. I ran some 5K and 10K races, and my goal was to eventually do a half marathon. I did my first half marathon in February of this year, followed by a 30-kilometer race in Hamilton, Ontario, called the Around the Bay 30K. I did 2 more half marathons, and then in June of this year, I did the Chicago Michelob Half Marathon, and was thrilled to run my first half marathon and first ever race in the United States. So after hearing my story, you might be asking, how can I get involved? How can I help out? Well, the amazing thing is, through bethematch.org, the American Stem Cell Registry, you can put your name in. You could potentially save a life. You could save a life like mine. Why should you register? Well, why should you register? You could potentially save a life like mine. You know, the fact that Nathan was willing to donate to anybody in need is part of the reason why I'm still alive. We were complete strangers. We didn't know each other. But he was willing to step in, step up, and help out. You could save a life too. BeTheMatch.org doesn't mean you could just save a life in the United States. You might be able to save a Canadian's life. You might be able to save somebody's life like me, a Canadian, or somebody overseas. You never know. Here in Canada, we need ethnic people. Somebody ethnic is defined by somebody who's not a Caucasian individual. Maybe you're African American, maybe you're Middle Eastern descent, maybe Asian, South Asian, Indian, Chinese. You get the point. There are many people waiting for a stem cell transplant, waiting to have their life saved. People of ethnic diversity that don't have access to as many people with a similar DNA. My match, my donor, Nathan, was a perfect match because we were a 10 for 10 marker. Getting registered with bethematch.org is one of the most noble things that you could do to potentially save a life.